WNBPA has got full power on calling a strike. Authorization from the WNBA players. WNBPA statement regarding strike authorization vote. They had a vote, all right? The players had a vote, and they said basically that the WNBPA can literally call a strike whenever they feel it's necessary.
The WNBA is standing at the edge of its most critical moment in modern history. Just as the league reaches unprecedented visibility, record attendance, and global attention, a decision behind closed doors threatens to derail everything. A strike vote has been authorized. Veterans are speaking out. Fans are turning on each other. And at the center of it all stands one name, Caitlin Clark.
I don't know why we're still bringing up a toxic fan base. I thought it was so condescending to say that so many fans are just latching on to Caitlin Clark for reasons other than the basketball. And that is something that we just continue to see. And it was also crazy because Katie Nolan at the end of this whole bit, she was like, yeah, I don't really watch that many games, but I'm keeping tabs on it. And it's like, that's the reason you had the take that you did. The reason that you had the take that you did is because you're not watching the games. You're not watching what's going on. You're not going to the games. And you clearly said that. You said, I'm a casual fan. I don't really watch the games, but I keep tabs on what's going on.
Let's slow this down and separate facts from emotion. The WNBA Players Association has formally authorized its leadership to call a strike if negotiations fail. Nearly every eligible player participated. An overwhelming majority voted yes. This does not mean a strike is happening today, but it does mean the power now exists to shut the season down at any moment.
To single out, once again, like I said, in 2025, to target a group of fans felt like was very condescending. There was another point in the podcast where Sue Bird said that all of these new fans that came here, they immediately said that all of the players who came before Caitlin were trash. And that's just not true.
The timing could not be more dangerous. The WNBA is coming off its most successful season ever. Viewership surged. Attendance exploded. Corporate sponsorships followed. For the first time, women's basketball wasn't asking for attention. It was commanding it.
Also feel so bad for Caitlin Clark because she's gotten to the level of popularity where people have just dehumanized her.
Caitlin Clark has been careful, publicly measured, consistently focused on the future. Her message has remained steady. Keep the momentum alive. Find common ground. Don't lose the audience that just arrived. Then came the clip that changed the temperature. A podcast discussion featuring Sue Bird, Megan Rapinoe, and Katie Nolan went viral, not because of nuance, but because of how new fans were characterized. The backlash wasn't about disagreement. It was about perception. Millions of fans who bought tickets, watched games, and invested emotionally felt talked down to by voices they were told represented the league's values. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A strike at this moment wouldn't punish owners first. It would punish momentum. It would erase casual fans who were just beginning to care. It would make sponsors hesitate. And it would send the league backwards fast. Another layer complicates this story: media economics. Caitlin Clark drives clicks. She drives ratings. She drives conversation. And when coverage leans too heavily on one name, resentment builds. This is bigger than one player, bigger than one podcast, bigger than one vote. This is about whether the WNBA can manage success, not just survive struggle. Negotiations continue. No strike has been called, and there is still time to course correct. But trust, once fractured, is difficult to rebuild. Caitlin Clark didn't create this pressure. Sue Bird didn't invent this tension. The WNBA didn't ask for the spotlight, but now it has it. What makes this moment so dangerous for the WNBA isn't just the strike authorization itself. It's the collision of timing, tone, and trust. The league has spent decades fighting for relevance, clawing for airtime, and convincing casual sports fans that women's basketball deserves mainstream attention. That battle was finally being won. Ratings weren't creeping up, they were exploding. Attendance wasn't improving, it was shattering records. For the first time, the WNBA wasn't asking to be taken seriously. It was being forced into the conversation by sheer demand. And yet, instead of consolidating that momentum, the league now finds itself in a self-inflicted standoff where internal fractures are more visible than external opposition. Caitlin Clark, intentionally or not, has become the symbol of that moment. Not because she asked to be, but because her presence exposed long-standing tensions that success tends to reveal rather than create. Growth doesn't just bring opportunity. Watching. New fans feel alienated by rhetoric that frames their enthusiasm as ignorance. Media figures feel torn between authenticity and engagement metrics. And players, especially younger ones, are caught in the middle, wondering whether this historic window will still be open by the time they hit their prime. A strike, even the threat of one, doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't just pressure ownership. It pressures sponsors deciding where to spend money, broadcasters deciding what to promote, and fans deciding where to invest their time. Once casual viewers drift away, history shows they rarely return out of loyalty. They return only when something feels inevitable. Right now, inevitability is being replaced by uncertainty. And uncertainty is poison for a league standing on the edge of its biggest breakthrough. This isn't about silencing players or dismissing labor rights. Those battles are valid and necessary. It's about understanding leverage, timing, and consequence. Because momentum, once lost, doesn't pause. It moves on. And leagues that misread their moment often don't realize what they've lost until the spotlight is gone. There's also a deeper, more uncomfortable layer to this story that very few people inside women's basketball are willing to confront publicly. Success changes power structures, and not everyone survives that change comfortably. For decades, influence in the WNBA flowed through a relatively small circle: veteran players, longtime media voices, and institutional gatekeepers who shaped narratives when the audience was limited and predictable. That ecosystem rewarded loyalty, patience, and endurance through lean years. But the Caitlin Clark era disrupted that balance almost overnight. Suddenly, attention wasn't being distributed evenly or gradually. It was flooding in, fast and uncontrollable, driven by algorithms, casual fans, and mainstream sports discourse that doesn't operate on tradition or seniority. That kind of exposure doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for consensus. It simply amplifies what people respond to most. And for some, that loss of narrative control feels less like growth and more like erasure. That's where resentment quietly forms, not always toward the player herself, but toward what she represents, a shift from earned reverence to market-driven relevance. When veteran voices criticize new fans, dismiss engagement as toxic, or frame popularity as superficial, it often reveals fear more than principle. Fear that the rules of influence have changed, and that history alone may no longer guarantee authority. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark continues to operate in an impossible position, asked to carry the league's commercial future while absorbing criticism she neither initiated nor benefits from. She becomes both asset and lightning rod, praised for revenue generation and blamed for cultural disruption, all while being told she should somehow fix a system she didn't design. That pressure is invisible to most viewers, but relentless behind the scenes. And when that tension intersects with labor negotiations, media incentives, and public discourse already primed for conflict, the result isn't dialogue, it's polarization. Fans retreat into camps. Players feel forced to pick sides. Media outlets chase outrage instead of clarity. And the league, rather than presenting a unified front during its most critical growth window, risks appearing fragmented and hostile to the very audience it worked so hard to attract. This is how leagues don't just stall, they fracture. Not from outside opposition, but from an inability to adapt internally when success finally arrives. The tragedy isn't that conflict exists. Conflict is inevitable in progress. The tragedy is that this moment, this rare convergence of talent, attention, and opportunity, may be remembered not for what it built, but for what it failed to protect.